Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Now, India is a big deal. It has the world's second largest population and it's the ninth largest economy in the world. India is also the biggest democracy in existence and one of the oldest nations in history. But India is not very good at winning Olympic medals. Now, there's no single or certain answer as to why this is true, but India's astonishingly poor performance at the Olympics has become a regular feature. Now, India sent 83 athletes to the London Olympic Games and won only 4 medals. A silver and a bronze in shooting, a bronze medal in badminton, and another bronze medal in women's boxing. And this is really not an atypical performance for India. Though India has been competing in the Olympic Games since the year 1900, it has only won 26 medals in all the Olympic Games combined. It has never won a medal at the Winter Olympics. In fact, personally, I don't even know if we've ever participated. By comparison, the United States won 104 medals in just the London Olympic Games and has won over 2,500 medals overall. At the 2008 Beijing Olympics, India had the lowest ratio of number of medals to population. That's to say that India brought home only 1 medal per 383 million Indians. And that year, must be noted, was India's best performance at the Olympics, where we won a gold medal in shooting and a bronze each in boxing and wrestling. Now, if you rank countries by the total number of Olympic medals that they've ever won, India comes in at 55th place and is tied with Morocco and Thailand. Now, India has participated in twice as many Olympic Games as these two countries, but their performance has not really had much of an effect. India is also regularly outperformed by much poorer countries like Ethiopia, Kenya, and North Korea. So all of this leads to the obvious question: why does India, despite a population of over 1 billion, produce so few medalists? Now, this question is frequently asked and frankly is very difficult to answer. There's no consensus, no obvious explanation, no unified theory of Indian Olympic underperformance. There are certainly some factors particular to India that might explain this trend, and I'd like to go through some of them now in the speech. But right at the very beginning, I think it's important to note that Indian athletes are no slouches. Indian cricket and field hockey teams are routinely among the best in the world. The country has an outstanding record in a number of events at the Commonwealth Games. Now, the Commonwealth Games is a sort of mini Olympics where 50 plus former British colonies compete. Also, just counting Olympic medals is not necessarily a good way to measure the sporting talent of a country. So in this way, we can say that there's nothing about India or Indians to say that they underperform in sports, because often they don't. So how do we explain the Olympic medal deficiency? There are a number of theories. Probably the most common is that both India as a country and Indians as individuals just have other priorities. In fact, sport has never been a priority for a number of Indians or for a number of Indian children either. We have a saying in Hindi which basically means that if you waste your life playing, you will never achieve anything. But if you study and do well in academics, you will end up being king. So, in this way, devoting the best years of your life to sport has never been high on too many people's list. And of course, we all know that producing world class athletes requires years of dedication and perseverance. A second factor is low income. Indian GDP per capita is very, very low. In fact, India is ranked among a number of poor African countries and former war zones that are still recovering. Now, to add to this, India is also weakened by poor infrastructure and poor governance that touches everything from public health to education to technological progress. Investment in sports and sporting infrastructure is anyway low. Add to it the mismanagement and corruption in the sector, and that's where things really start going downhill. Rich countries, by contrast, tend to perform so well in the Olympics due to better access to sporting infrastructure like swimming pools, tennis courts, etc. But there's also the economic safety net that makes it easier for Western would-be Olympians to take a chance on athletics. Now, if an American amateur gymnast spends a number of years not concentrating on her education or formal training, but actually working towards her dream of winning an Olympic gold medal, but in the end it doesn't actually work out, she still has a good shot at a middle class life. Her Indian equivalent, on the other hand, would find it very difficult to set up this sort of middle class life without having concentrated on her university education or a vocational training. Therefore, it makes it even more difficult for people to actually bet on athletics and sporting glory. Thirdly, though India has an enormous population, its population that effectively participates in athletics at an international level is much smaller. Huge sections of India's 1.2 billion effectively don't count when it comes to international athletics. They are excluded by poor childhood health because they are geographically isolated from sporting facilities. This occurs often where sporting facilities and infrastructure is only available in urban areas, and a lot of people in India do actually live in rural areas. And it might just be impossible for them to make the journey to the cities to train every week. And often in a number of areas, Indians are just not sufficiently aware of the Olympic Games and the sports involved. Now, this might lead us to ask another sub-question, that other developing countries besides India have in fact managed to do quite well at the Olympics. China led the world in gold medals in the Games in 2008 and was neck and neck with the United States this time around in London. So why can't India also achieve this? Now, there is another theory that might explain this. Though China still has hundreds of millions of rural and urban poor, its population of well-connected, well-educated, and well-nourished citizens is also quickly growing. As a result, the section of the population that can effectively participate in international sporting events is growing. It is also possible to see a slight correlation between Olympic medals and developing countries that are run by a strong central government. Olympic medals and sporting glory is seen as a way to foster national prestige and a national sentiment, and therefore the government is interested in making sure that this actually moves forward. Cuba, North Korea, today China, and once upon a time the Soviet Union invested heavily in finding and fostering competitive athletes. The Indian government at this point is perhaps too decentralized for a China-style nationwide campaign to foster national athletic talent. Still, income and governance alone cannot explain India's underperformance. A handful of other poor countries without a strong central government have still found a way to win far more medals. But if you were to take a closer look, you would notice that these countries typically excel in just one or two sports, in which, for whatever reason, they have managed to achieve exceptional success. Turkey has won over two-thirds of its medals in wrestling alone. Jamaica has won 52 of its 53 medals in track and field events. Kazakhstan dominates in weightlifting. Perhaps the most famous examples in this context are Kenya and Ethiopia, two of the world's poorest countries that reliably produce its strongest long-distance runners. India perhaps has yet to define or yet to identify an Olympic event where its people might excel exceptionally. Now, even field hockey, which has historically been India's greatest strength at the Olympics, is just another reminder that gold, silver, and bronze all cost paper. Now, between 1928 and 1968, India won all but two of the field hockey gold medals at the Olympics. But 1976 was a make or break year for India. Now, in this year, the Olympics switched from natural turf, that is to say grass, to synthetic turf for hockey. Synthetic turf is far more expensive, and in many places in India, there just weren't the funds to build these synthetic fields. As a result, all the Indian players who were practicing on actual grass fields were learning skills that no longer helped them in international competition. And only the communities with the money to build a synthetic field could train viable contenders. As a result, since 1976, India has only won one single field hockey medal. And it's another example as to how India has been priced out of a sport that at one point brought them so much Olympic glory. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, finding an answer to the question, why does India win so few medals at the Olympics, is not one that is really easy to answer. The various reasons that I've explored through this speech also make it clear that the journey of an Indian athlete to eventually make it to the Olympic Games is really not a bed of roses. There is a lot of hard work and sacrifice involved, and you have to be ready to embrace a lot of uncertainty and resistance to make your sporting dreams a reality. Therefore, I personally feel that India's Olympic achievements cannot be measured by the number of medals alone. I think that each medal has to be appreciated against the background of the winning athlete's journey and just to see how much they have had to fight against and how, against all odds, they have made sure that India does not come back from the Olympics empty-handed. Thank you.